France now for our Entre Nous segment. And today we're focusing on the concept of dry January, or the push not to drink alcohol for the whole first month of the year. We're going to talk about that now with Solange Mougin, who joins me in the studio. Hi, Solange.
Hi, Jenny.
So here in France, drinking alcohol, of course, is incredibly entwined with the cultural traditions of the country. So isn't there a conflict with dry January in France?
There is, and there isn't, or there can be at times, and that's what makes this so interesting. Are we, as a society, as individuals, in the process of redefining the presence of alcohol in our lives? Studies and statistics show that many people are doing just that in France. According to the associations that back dry January here, but also elsewhere in the world, not drinking for a month has positive long-term effects that go way beyond just the month of January. Here in France, it is an increasingly popular trend, even if it is also a politically and an economically sticky one. More on that in a minute. Now, this year, an IFOP poll found that 1 in 4, or 17 million people, declared that they want to abstain from drinking for all of January in France. We're now at that halfway point of the month, so it'll be interesting to see how many have managed it and to see how they feel about not drinking. But nonetheless, the polls, they show that 12% of French drinkers are participating for the first time this year. And this illustrates a wider trend across France of people reassessing the presence of alcohol in their lives. Since the 1970s, the quantity that people are drinking here has been decreasing. Alcohol sales have dropped 70% in the past 60 years. For France, which is this pays de vin or wine country, this is still actually the number 2 consumer of wine in the world. This is a big, albeit slow, shift. And there are helpers and hinderers to this societal change.
So you were talking about this economic and political stickiness, and I imagine, of course, it's because of the wine industry, which does carry a lot of weight in France.
Yeah, the French wine, one of the French wine lobbies, Vin et Société, says that the industry generates nearly 92 billion euros in turnover every year, and that it employs over 400,000 people. They also tout that they bring in some 6 billion euros in taxes to the state every year. And France is a major exporter, with France being the number 1 exporter in terms of monetary value and number 3 in terms of quantity of wine. And that's just wine. That doesn't even touch on beer and the spirits sector. So, and perhaps I'm stating the obvious here, wine is a big deal economically and culturally in this country. But at the same time, there is also a cost, health-wise and economically. Alcohol is thought to kill some 42,000 people in France every year and to cause directly or indirectly some 60 illnesses. The French Observatory for Drugs and Addiction computed this 2 years ago, and they found that if you take into account the lost lives, add that to the public health costs, the loss of productivity, while subtracting as well the revenue from taxes and sales, well, alcohol costs 102 billion euros a year to the French economy. Those are the broadline financial figures. But societally, there is also this shift going on. The alcohol sector is in a crisis, and many argue that drinking is in the process of becoming less cool or of being reassessed along potentially the same lines that smoking was.
So what's driving this shift? I mean, is it public figures? Is it the government? Where's it coming from?
The assessment is largely being driven by scientific studies that are consistently showing how bad alcohol is for us. That plus a growing consciousness due to movements like Dry January, which actually began in the UK over a decade ago. In the United States, the Surgeon General's warning this month that alcohol is the 3rd preventable cause of cancer after tobacco and obesity. That plus the warning that it causes 100,000 cancer cases, and directly causes 20,000 deaths each year in the U.S. These are cases in point of this growing alarm. Now, the call for cancer warnings to be added to alcoholic beverages was a surprise to many people, myself included. So this begs the question of what role, be it in France or elsewhere, that public figures are playing in warning the public. Here in France, there has been some progress since consciousness of this came about in the 1970s. There are hotlines, there are public service announcements. There is a slogan that most everyone here in France knows, en modération, only in moderation. And the guidelines in France are currently 2 units of a standard glass per day and no more than 10 a week. But is that too lenient? And is the state doing enough to warn people? Well, the World Health Organization says no consumption at all is safe, and many health and addiction associations and politicians say that Emmanuel Macron is a pro-drinking president. He was actually named Person of the Year by a wine review, and many actually accuse him of working too closely with members of the lobby. They also accuse him of conflicts of interest, of pulling prevention campaigns, and scrapping in 2019 a plan to back Dry January, despite the fact that the French government does back the tobacco version of it, of no smoking in November.
So there's criticism on the health officials on the one hand, not doing enough to warn people. There's a growing consciousness amongst the population as well. I mean, I have to ask, like, Solange, where do you fit in all of this? Are you doing Dry January?
This is my big disclaimer of the day. I am trying to do Dry January. I cheated a tiny little bit at a party. There was champagne and a grand vin. But so far, so good. And I'm discovering non-alcoholic alternatives, which is actually a sector that is beginning to boom here in France and also elsewhere. The IWSR, which gathers statistics on beverages, they say that the no or low alcohol drink sector is expected to grow by 4 billion in the next 3 years, and that it's already actually started to grow drastically in France, France being one of its biggest markets with the highest number of new recruits worldwide, thanks to namely to young people, which means that alcohol may be out, but the tradition, the strong cultural tradition of l'apéro may not be.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's ever going to stop doing apéro, even if they do it with a soft drink. Why not?
Yes, exactly.
Solange Moujon, thank you so much for that look at Dry January. And good luck to all of you if any of you out there are sticking with Dry January as well. Coming up for you now on